just sent us out here to survey the land.
Golly, get off my land. You don't have permission.
No, we will not.
The Dominion of Canada does not have rights to survey without our permission. Now get out of here.
We shall create the National Committee to deal with the Canadians and have Louis Riel be our secretary. And we will not let Canadians enter our land until the Dominion of Canada negotiate with us that the current president can decide will be in political control.
Yeah! Send a message to McDougall and tell him to delay the transfer until we figure out this problem.
McDougall either ignored or did not receive the message and proclaimed Rupert's Land on December 1st, 1869 for the Dominion of Canada and ended HBC authority over the land.
The revised committee will not recognize a Canadian authority until Métis rights are guaranteed.
Members of the convention plotted to overthrow it because they felt their opinions weren't being heard by John Schultz. A group of Schultz supporters were arrested for attempting to take over Upper Fort Garry. Thomas Scott, as well as 2 others, were found guilty of treason and sentenced to death. Louis Riel pardoned the other 2, but Thomas Scott was executed by firing squad. The Manitoba Act was set on July 15, 1870, in which the terms were accepted by the convention. Métis rights were addressed and Manitoba entered Canada as a self-governing province. I am Johnny MacDonald, and I think we should send military to the Red River to help the new province's Lieutenant Governor, Adams Archibald. These troops took control of the settlement in a period that was called a Reign of Terror. Many members were warned of troops' hostility and left settlement. Louis Riel escaped across the American border.
The Canadian militia joined in, punishing members of provisional government. Members of the provisional government were supporters of Thomas Scott, who beat, threatened, and harassed any Métis people they encountered. Métis residents began to avoid Fort Garry for their safety because protection from military was poor. Métis residents began to avoid Fort Garry for their safety because protection from military was poor. Archibald tried restoring control of the violence in the Red River with Métis continued until 1872. Riel feared for his life and spent most of the time in the United States, and he visited Manitoba 7 times, but it was very briefly. Thousands of settlers were arriving in Canada after 1870. Métis people were outnumbered by Euro-Canadians. It became frightening to be French-speaking and Catholic in a high volume of English-speaking Protestants in the Red River climate of violence and racism. Jobs were on the decline with new technologies like steamboats to transfer goods for fur trade.
The Canadian government had begun building the Canadian Pacific Railway, which would run across the country.
Riel worked with both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities in the region and worked on a petition outlining grievances and demands sent to Ottawa. March 1885, Métis leaders called a provisional government and Riel wrote a Bill of Rights. Aboriginals, Métis, and Euro-Canadian farmers fought together to win several battles against the military, but a force of 8,000 soldiers is quickly sent using the railway. They were starved out of ammunition and surrendered at Batoche, Saskatchewan. Louis Riel was charged with high treason for his role during the resistance. Lawyers were denied these requests and he was tried in Regina. Jury found him guilty of high treason, and which was carried an automatic death penalty in Regina in November 1886.